In this episode of Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks, Nvidia confirms lots of details on Ampere. We've got Lenovo's ThinkPad X13 and it's powered by Ryzen, and a whole lot more. Next. Welcome back to yet another episode of Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks. I am the overly sunshined Dave Altavilla, fresh back from vacation. Man, did I get some sun. How you guys doing? How's it going, fellas? How's it going, gentlemen? And I use that term loosely.
Yeah, who you calling a gentleman? I know you were in the sun too long if you're calling us gentlemen. No, things are good. Beautiful day here in Connecticut in the Connecticut lab. It's like the first time in ages the AC's been off and all the windows are open. Feeling productive. We got the cast going. Things are good. Things are good right now.
Life is good here in geekdom. Chris, how's it going up there in God's country, Maine, where the men are men and I don't know, lots of other things are men too, probably.
I think we're going good now that I just fixed Marco's little bit of echo there. So I think as long as everything goes smoothly with this cast, I think I'm in a good place.
Chris is always in a good place because he's turning the knobs and dials. As long as the gremlins don't bite us, they're good for Chris. Chris, are you imbibing anything today?
Yeah, I've got some Pendleton whiskey. So,
that's the heavier duty stuff for driving the knobs and dials, Pally.
And check out this.
It's a tough Thursday when he whips out the whiskey.
Except it's Wednesday, but whatever.
My gosh.
Yeah.
It could be any day of the week right now, and I don't know. It's been quite a work week, but that's neither here nor there.
Marco's got some fruity acai berry drink.
I'm rocking the kombucha. I'm trying to work on the belly. Not feeling 100% in the belly today.
Get the good belly bugs going. I've got something to get the good belly bugs going. This is right from Hopkinton, Massachusetts. This is Hop Load by Startline Brewing Company. The start of the marathon. Good stuff. That's a hazy IPA, and I've got my summer shanty koozie, which is from good old West Dennis, Cape Cod, from Bass River, where I was hanging out all week. God, that's a beautiful place. It's home. It's where I came from, right up the street, and love to go back every year. Maybe you guys will get some vacation too if we ever let you off the treadmill. But anyways, let's cut with the idle chit chat and dive into the headlines, dive into the tech. We've got a lot of stuff going on at HH. You guys did a really cool podcast while I was on vacation, by the way. Thanks for that. I don't know if anybody missed this, but Retro Geek Revival, I guess is what I would call it. You brought out some pretty cool stuff from the deep in the hardware vault of the Connecticut HH labs, huh, Marco?
Yeah, I pulled out the Quad Father, the Skull Trail, some prototype graphics cards. I was hoping that we'd pull in a bunch of more live viewers because I pimped it all over the retro groups on Facebook. But yeah, if you haven't seen last week's podcast, go check it out. There's some hardware you may never have seen before in there.
I'll see if I can pull up the link for you. I can probably do that right now and toss it in the chat. Not that I want you to dual YouTube while you're watching us now, but for consumption later, we'll add this in to the chat right here. But yeah, lots of stuff going on the site. I mean, just absolutely bubbling. We're getting no rest here in the summertime months for the wicked, so to speak. Just tons of tech, tons of launches, and no sign of letting up. Big launches afoot. And we'll get into a couple that we'll be talking about imminently. But stop by the site, hit the homepage, and check out the following if you haven't hit them yet. LG Velvet review from the illustrious Miriam Joie. LG's Velvet is a stylish 5G-enabled phone that is actually a value play, about just under $600, but it's carrier locked. That's the LG Velvet. Pretty cool device. And doesn't necessarily hit all the high notes in terms of excitement, but has wireless charging, has a headphone jack, brings a lot to the table along with 5G. So check that out. Miriam Joie has been doing some great mobile reviews for us. And then good old Ben Funk checked out the Asus Tough Gaming X3 Radeon RX 5700. Marco, that's a pretty cool looking card, huh?
They are really nice cards. So, back in the early when the 5700 XTs and 5700 first launched, ASUS took a little heat for literally having their cards run too hot. And this is like the new revamped cooler in the tough style. So not quite the super top of the line with all the bells and whistles. So they're a little more affordable, but performance rocked and thermals were much better than the first gen cards. So if you're looking for a 5700 series, go check those out.
Yeah, man. Yeah, good stuff. What's that, Chris?
I was going to say that looks like a 2.5 slot card.
Yeah, 2.7. So effectively 3 slots.
But she's quiet. If you like it quiet. And let's see, Marco also took a look at the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. That is a big honking phablet device with some serious enhancements over the previous gen, the Note 10. What do you think versus the Note 10 real quick? We'll do the turbo review.
So it does feel like an upgrade across the board. I mean, everything from cameras to screen, battery life is even better despite the higher performance from the new platform. The only thing that I wanted to be wowed over was the camera, but like the wide angle camera had some purple fringing. The super zoom, as you saw in your Galaxy S20 review, like you got to be super steady if you're going to use the super zoom because it's really hard to eliminate wobble when you're zoomed out that far. But for the normal shooter, the standard shooter, kick butt camera, and it's a kick butt phone across the board. If you like Samsung, you're going to love the Note 20.
Would you rock it as a daily driver?
Oh, I'm going to.
Yeah, I know you like those big phones, and I know you've been a Note fan previously. So, okay, it did pass muster as a daily driver for you. Interesting.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've been on the Note 10 Plus, so it's really just a performance upgrade and, some updated cameras.
Yeah. The camera module looks pretty sweet. I would say looks like the design's well done. You got a 12 gig model as well, 12 gigs of RAM.
I believe, I don't remember. I think it was. It's not the top end, but it was the 12 gig with 128 gigs of storage.
Nice, good stuff. So that's the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra 5G, powered by Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 and the Snapdragon X55 5G modem. Chris, what was that?
Marco, is this your finger in the top corner of the picture, like a boomer?
Yes, don't mind the fat finger. Yeah, that's the finger in the corner. Yeah, I should have said no, but no, I mentioned it in the text in the article, so there's no getting around that one.
We can't let you live that one down, buddy. Sorry.
That's all right. I'm sorry.
It's okay. We're humans. We have
much
fingers.
as I want to be a good photographer, I just don't have it in me.
You do. You have your moments for sure. But cool stuff, great stuff. And of course, Intel came out with Architecture Day. We won't dive back into that. We covered that last cast. But everybody's firing, from the mobile guys to the laptop guys to the big GPU guys. And we'll use that as a transition. Last night, Nvidia dropped a little something on the wire to us under NDA, and this morning when that lifted at 9 a.m. Eastern, we launched an article. Nathan Ord, by the way, who was with us in the chat, new to the HotHardware team, has been in the audience and as a moderator at hothardware.com for many a months, many a years, maybe. I think maybe a couple of years. He's been hanging out with us for a long time. Nathan is new to the fold as a HotHardware editor. He's covering in the news channel, and he picked up on this. NVIDIA confirms leaks, highlights cooling and power solutions for GeForce RTX Ampere cards. And, when we first saw this video, it was really kind of glitzy, splash reel, behind the scenes, lots of cool camera angles and talking to engineers and stuff. And it didn't sink in when I first fired it up, I'll be honest with you, because it was kind of like an homage to NVIDIA's cooling solutions over the years. And let's face it, they've designed some pretty effective cooling solutions for their graphics cards over the years. You can see GeForce 10 series there and the GeForce RTX 20 series before it. And it kind of didn't really click what we were looking at. And then all of a sudden they were flashing some stuff that was clearly next gen. And we got a really good understanding by sort of not only reading between the tea leaves, but dissecting exactly what we were seeing and analyzing it. We got a really good feel for what the GeForce RTX 30 series or Ampere series cooling solution and card design is based on. Including that 12-pin power connector, PCI Express power connector, Marco, what were your thoughts there? Let's sort of break it down a little bit because there was a lot to unpack that just sort of flashed for seconds at a time that if you weren't paying attention, you could have missed it.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. So over the last few weeks, obviously tons of, well, actually maybe the last few months, tons of Ampere related information has leaked and none of it's been officially confirmed. And technically, Nvidia didn't come right out and say this is Ampere and confirm a bunch of stuff, except for a couple of little things like that 12-pin power connector that's going to be on Ampere. So if you like go through this video and pay attention to what you're seeing, you're going to notice a new cooler design with fans facing the, so if the card is horizontal in the system, one fan facing down, one fan facing up, you're going to notice a funky shaped PCB. There's like a V-shaped jagged edge PCB. That 12-pin, the micro 12-pin PCI Express connector is officially confirmed. They actually mention it, and we grabbed that screenshot from the video. There's a new leaf spring mounting mechanism for the next gen coolers coming for Ampere that's lower profile, so you can have a fully covered backplate without protruding too high. Sometimes there's very little clearance between the graphics card and the CPU if you're in the top slot. And just overall, we've kind of got a feel for what the card's going to look like. Even at the very end, those leaked coolers and leaked cards that were shown in pictures with that funky X-shaped cooler that kind of flashed that design at the end as well. So what we know is that NVIDIA's put in a ton of engineering effort to come up with a highly capable cooler. We know that the back half of it is basically all heatsink linked to the front via heat pipes, and the rear fan, which would face the top of the case, if it's mounted in a slot horizontally like that, is basically it's passing through completely. Air passes completely through and shoots up through the case so it can get exhausted. But the other fan sits atop a vapor chamber and blows air directly over the GPU and memory and then directly out of the case. So you have this large array that's being kept relatively cool because it's not attached to any hot running components directly, that's wicking heat away, while the main vapor chamber is, sucking as much heat away from the GPU and memory and VRM as it can and pumps that out of the case. So lots of cool stuff going on here. Plus that V-shaped PCB, that's kind of funky to see. If you look at the picture of the 12-pin controller, you can see the PCB behind a 12-pin connector. You can see the V-shaped PCB behind it.
Yeah. And what struck me with this whole thing, with this video tease that really, again, just paid an homage to NVIDIA thermal solutions and their GPUs over the years, and then did flash Ampere, the likeness of Ampere. What was very interesting about the whole thing was that all the leaks we saw, whether it was the cards sitting in some back room somewhere, or the 12-pin connector that came out recently, and that got out in the news wire as well. We had a story up on that. All this video basically confirmed the physical attributes of the card. You saw images that were right in line with those leaks. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. And that thermal solution, that just strikes me as NVIDIA really engineered this thing. And I think they talked about, looking at, thermal simulations, additional thermal simulations. I'm not sure, what the methods were there, if they employed some, adaptive AI going on to analyze the thermal design, but clearly it's an innovative thermal design. I want to really understand what performance is like with it. We expect it to be a beast of a GPU, right? But you've got what's, as you noted, Marco, kind of a push-pull where it's pulling in cool in the front and pushing warm out the plate via the back fan. Is that right? Or is it, yeah. So it's got that push-pull kind of thing, both axial fans, but on opposite sides of the card, and that V-shaped, man, that PCB, they really had to re-engineer mechanically the whole design. Just impressive stuff.
Yeah, like if you look at the shape of the rear heatsink, I'm not sure that fan actually, if any air from that fan reaches the front of the card.
Right.
I think it's more like it's like kind of V-shaped fins there.
Is it backside pull?
I think it's just a completely separate radiator connected via heat pipes that's just keeping the main plate as cool as possible, and there's no thermal transfer from the back to the front. I think, like we saw a leaked CAD drawing that, now that I think about it more, I don't think that's real, because it had dual 8-pin power connectors at the back, and it showed a barrier separating the front and back of the card.
Right.
I'm not sure. Like we're really just kind of hoping that leaked picture is actually the card, and we're pretty sure it is. But what concerns me, like, I think Nvidia really went hardcore on this cooler, and temps and noise are going to really be in check. But that's also, if that's a reference card, that's a 3-slot reference card. And there's been speculation. I actually saw a meme floating around today that showed the outputs on a case bracket with 2 3-pin AC power plugs where you plug in standard power cords for the graphics card. But see, it's funny, like there was speculation that 12-pin connector is, foreshadows some crazy power consumption, but it works through an adapter with dual 8-pin connectors. And if we saw a top-end graphics card with dual 8-pin connectors, we wouldn't be going, wow, a ton of power. Yeah, it's going to be at the upper end, but we're not going to go nuts over that. That's something we've seen for years now. But that triple slot cooler and the potential for this to be a really huge GPU, I don't know. Like, I think it's going to rock, but it might be really power hungry.
let's talk about another wrinkle that Seasonic threw in there with that leaked power connector box, right? I think we have a story up on HotHardware. I have to pull it up. I'll have to sort from via Ampere here, but that power connector, let me see if I can throw in the chat. It says right on the box, it's recommended to use a power supply rated 850 watts or higher with this cable. So, okay, it's recommended 850 watts. It doesn't mean it's going to pull every bit of that 850, but that's what it says on the box.
Yeah, but so if you do the math though, so two 8-pin connectors, right, 300 watts, and then another 75 watts from the PCI Express slot. So unless there's another connector we don't know about, theoretically it's max 375 watts. And the 2080 Ti had a 650 watt requirement or a recommendation for the PSU. So I think it's safe to assume it's going to pull more power than a 2080 Ti, but it's not going to be like 400 watts plus. You know what I'm saying?
The other thing we can't assume, and you're right, Marco. I got things flying around my face. The other thing we can't assume is that this configuration, with the 12-pin power connector, is every card. We've heard rumors of 3080s and 3090s. Maybe this is the top end 3090. It needs the special power connector. You need a beefy power supply that can support 850 watts or some sort of amperage over the rail. But that doesn't mean every card needs that. Chris, what are your thoughts on this? We might as well have you weigh in. I don't know if you got a chance to digest this thing yet, but it was a pretty interesting, telling video, to be sure.
Yeah, I mean, the designs look fantastic in their showcase there, and showing the design over the years. I think it's good that they're kind of celebrating the getting away from the strictly blower style cards that aren't necessarily the best option in most cases. Like, if you have a small form factor case and can get in the side panel and blow out, that's probably your best option. But for most open air cases that people are using, or larger volume cases, then these other styles of blowers that can move more air are a lot more efficient. So it's good to see that. I'm also fascinated by the push through PCB design, because that V shape is to cut out for airflow. So I think it'll be very interesting to get our hands on the card and actually see how it's broken down. Maybe we can do a little teardown on the card and really assess the cooling setup it has when we do our review, inevitably.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, the review is going to have to be done, because I'm not pulling it apart before the numbers.
No, you run all the numbers, and then
I am super conservative in that regard, because if I murdered a 3090 before the review went up, yeah, I'd be pissed. But you know what else like is interesting? So there's been so many other rumors, like a coprocessor somewhere on the card to do new things. And the other thing that has me really intrigued, and it's like, yeah, let's say, there was a rumor that the 3070 is going to perform like a 2080 Ti. If that's the case, we might be a couple of months away from $500 2080 Ti's. And that's some serious performance if that happens down in that price range. I don't think it's going to scale that way. But, the plus side is if Ampere comes in, with a monster performance improvement in the same price brackets that Turing did, you're about to have some, much more affordable Turing cards. And they're beasts. I mean, they're the fastest cards still,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of gaming performance coming soon.
Nvidia is a company that is absolutely crushing it right now. And if you've watched their stock, and we should just touch, very high level on Nvidia, but the execution with this company is just off the hook right now. There's no two ways about it. You may be, Team Red fanboy or girl, and but you cannot deny that what they are delivering to market right now for gamers, what they're delivering to market in the data center, and even some of their wins and things like autonomous driving with the Mercedes-Benz announcement. I mean, they are just firing on all cylinders. That stock has gone from, I don't know, it was a couple of weeks ago, around $350. It's now north of 500. Heck, I remember when it was sub $100. The stock is just going crazy right now. And then we hear rumors, not really rumors, it was almost pure confirmation that they're in discussions to acquire ARM. And when that happens, it's like, IP juggernaut ARM that basically designs, RISC processor cores for every mobile phone on the planet, including
that's not
Apple.
x86. Yeah.
That's not x86. Yeah. That, I mean, talk about a powerhouse if they pull that off, and you just have to hand it to them. That is a company that they're an execution machine. And, I guess I'm being overly positive or whatever, but it's undeniable. I mean, whatever you want to call me, but, we appreciate technology in all its forms and incarnations, and we appreciate the companies that deliver that to market. And let's face it, Nvidia is delivering some cool stuff. Hopefully Ampere is more of the same. Price points and power are question marks, as always, because bigger GPUs demand more dollars and more power, right?
So if I can just jump in real quick, because it's really pretty and I want to show it off. And Nathan just mentioned it in the chat, Blackhawk. So EK is looking to release a water block for the 30 series cards as soon as possible. And apologies to Wallace Santos in the chat. Competitor, I guess, now with the system behind me. But these are really nice looking water blocks in person. And I think that one of those on a 30 series cards would just be gorgeous. Even if you don't have the full system, just to get those on there. And again, like Nathan said, cut down on the size of the 3 card if you can.
Yeah.
Wallace has a heart in the chat, so it's all love from him.
Wallace is, if you know Wallace, he's all about community and the ecosystem and the bigger picture. And so I am certain the fact that you have an EK water block system, an EK liquid gaming system in the background there that you're working on, Chris, I'm certain that's not an issue for Wallace. He loves it all. And he's a great guy. And Wallace says Nvidia's confidence is high. I think they're bringing the mojo this time. Wallace sees stuff very early, folks. So if Wallace says they're bringing the mojo this time, he's probably right. That's just my guess.
So almost 9 months ago, I had a board partner say Nvidia's bringing the mojo this time, and that was 9 months ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're going to see awesome 4K performance. We are going to see very good performance improvements in traditional rendering across most games, and we're going to see monster performance improvements in ray tracing and DLSS stuff.
That's what you expect. These are your foretellings, eh?
And that is my prediction. We across the board performance improvements, obviously as you would expect, but generational leaps in ray tracing performance stuff.
Nice. And I think that's what we need. You know, obviously, when you can lift the image quality to the extent that developers can't not sign up for it, right? I mean, we've seen various incarnations of ray tracing in games right now, and there's definitely a lot more traction and adoption in the marketplace than ever before. But when you start bringing the kind of visuals that developers can't live without, that are just like jaw-dropping, and you do that with more horsepower, that's when it really gets traction and critical mass. So yeah, bring it, NVIDIA. We love to see it. All right, should we move on to the next one?
Sure.
It's goody. So yeah, let's talk about Lenovo's ThinkPad X13. This is Gen 1 of the X13, and it is a Ryzen-powered laptop. Ryzen Pro 4650U to be exact, 6-core, 12 threads, 2.1 gigahertz base, 4 gigahertz max boost, has Vega 6 graphics on boards, 1080p IPS display with touch, 300 nits brightness, all the good stuff, 256 gig NVMe solid state drive. I believe it was PCI Express 4. Marco, correct me if I'm wrong.
It was 3. It's a Samsung 981.
Okay, cool. PM 981. Great.
Yeah.
8 gigs of RAM, DDR4, 3200. I mean, you know, loaded for bear, 48 watt hour, 3-cell battery, which sounds modest and dropping in at under 3 pounds, but battery life was excellent. And the price that starts at under $800, $797 to be exact, as configured, 1116, $1,116, really brings the value. And Ben Funk reviewed this for us. Ben is just killing it for us, doing some great job with reviews. Applause for Ben Funk. Bring the funk. He loved this thing, gave it an editor's choice because of the value and performance it brings with that 6-core Ryzen under the hood, right, Marco?
Yes. So I am going to grab something else first.
Oh.
This just came in, and I am benchmarking it now. This is also a Lenovo machine. This has Ryzen 7U in it. So Ben just reviewed a 6-core Ryzen 5 in that device. This is the 8-core in this little razor thin device here.
What is that?
This is the Lenovo Yoga Slim 7. This was the one that was announced when Ryzen Mobile first came out, and we were supposed to have a review back in late March, April, but the COVID situation threw everything out of whack, and it just arrived. So I jumped on it right away. Pictures are done. I've already been through a full power cycle on the battery, and benchmarks are installed. So I'm going to try to burn through that because I think this is a super hot machine, and initial impressions are really good. But now going back to Ben's review, this thing is awesome, right? So first of all, it's a Ryzen Pro, but that's the same as a regular Ryzen. The Pro just gets you the management utilities for IT departments, but it's the same CPU. That Lenovo machine is freaking awesome, man. So you're talking about Ultrabook class thin and light with 6 cores. So if you look at the charts, right, this machine's not always at the top of the charts, but that's because we put in some much higher power, heavier duty notebooks in there. The only notebooks that were faster in the heavy duty multi-threaded workloads were like the Intel HK processors, the big honkin' mobile processors, not the Ultrabook parts. So you have multi-threaded performance, in line with a 6-core Ryzen, strong single-threaded, maybe not the strongest, but it's right up there, in a nice thin and light machine that doesn't get loud, that's got that Lenovo ThinkPad quality, that's affordable, and the battery life is right up there. It's like it hits all of the high marks that you'd expect. So what everybody was expecting from or hoping, I should say, from Ryzen U series mobile parts, they delivered. Like you have the battery life, you have the performance, you have the affordability. It's here. So like, I can't wait to finish this review of the Ryzen 7 machine, because I think it's going to be awesome. I'm hoping that with the higher powered processor, those additional 2 cores, battery life is still good and up near the top of the charts, because I'm liking the machine.
Yeah, man. So there it is. You're looking at the you were just looking at the battery chart right there. So it's in the top 4 machines of all time for us. And 1080p display, so super power efficient with that. But you're talking about a 6-core chip that probably smokes those other Intel machines there at the top with quad cores. Maybe not in every test, but in tests where it's heavily multi-threaded for sure. Lightly threaded, single-threaded tests, not so much. But yeah, when you have battery life like that and performance to spare, and then for us, what's always a high point with Lenovo machines for us is keyboard. And I mean, we're snobs when it comes to keyboard. We're all mechanical guys at home on the desktop. And but Lenovo just puts together these keyboard setups with the shaped keycaps versus the chiclets that just feel great. And so yeah, the ergonomics in the machine are great. It's not going to be a style stunner like an XPS product from Dell, but if you want a comfortable, high quality experience with great performance at a good price with good battery life, it's kind of it. Right.
Yeah, and there's a couple more things that we can sort of ascertain from Ben's review. I'm going to open this thing back up because it's so pretty.
It is pretty.
Like
really
this
nice.
is a
it's
nice
balanced
machine.
Yeah,
like this is a good looking machine.
Real quick, how's the key travel on that?
It's surprisingly good. Like surprisingly good. There's nothing I'm not impressed with. Like, me, I'm all about the understated looks. So like, I even like sort of the plain old gunmetal, no flashiness going on here. It's not touch, but man, there's a strong possibility this becomes my daily driver. Very strong possibility. We'll see. But something interesting from Ben's review, you'll see that the Vega 6 in the Ryzen 5 is basically right on par with Iris Plus in Ice Lake. So that means Tiger Lake is going to crush that version of Vega.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now the Ryzen 7 has additional graphics cores and higher clocks, so this should be faster. I'm not done yet. I can't say just yet because I don't have any official benchmarks yet. So this is going to change that comparison a little bit. But I think Tiger Lake's graphics are going to be awesome in this segment relative to Vega based on what we see in this Lenovo review. And I think we just had some stuff come in the chat. Let me take a peek here.
Yeah.
I think Peter, I think that's pronounced Peter. He's referring to the Ampere cards. I think pricing is going to come in line with the high-end Turing cards, perhaps a little higher, unfortunately, but it's not going to be out of the realm of what we saw with the Turing launch.
Yeah. You have to expect, this is going to be a large honking GPU. It's probably going to be a little bit pricier, but you don't know. Nothing's confirmed until it's confirmed, right? So, but yeah, no, getting back to Lenovo's machine, honestly, what AMD is putting out is some good stuff. And then what Intel has on the horizon with Tiger Lake, from what we've seen, from what Intel has shown us, which is a fair amount, it should be impressive. And that's what's beautiful is that, mobile computing, it seems like every generation, but especially these recent generations, whether you talk Ryzen 4000, Ice Lake, which was a nice jump as well, and then Tiger Lake, which is going to be supposedly, according to Intel, a significant jump. Really, the mobile computing experience is just going off the hook right now. It's hitting another gear, which is just great to see. Because we all could do more on the road, right?
So, one other advantage that Intel should have in these ultra mobile parts is Thunderbolt. So, really, with mobile Ryzen, the only thing you really miss out on is external GPU support, because there's no Thunderbolt. So, Tiger Lake based ultrabooks, if you're the kind of user that maybe would want an external GPU at home to game and an ultrabook is your main machine, a Tiger Lake machine may have that advantage. if that, that's a very small group of people, I'm sure, but that's something that's a possibility. We should probably also mention, if you're itching for more information on Tiger Lake, we're probably going to have something we can share relatively soon.
Yeah.
We got access to some muckety mucks at Intel, very
Top
high
brass.
up. Yeah, and we're able to ask some direct questions and got some juicy tidbits to share, and we are massaging that content now. So hopefully we can share that pretty soon. We don't want to completely let the cat out of the bag because some stuff might change, but if you're itching for more information in that regard, we may have an exclusive coming to you guys very, very soon. We're hoping that happens, but man, so much good stuff lately. So much good stuff.
Yeah, and actually, I think we may have some exclusive on XE HPG as well. We'll keep that in reserve. I don't want to overcommit and under-deliver, but yeah, we've been talking to some higher ups at Intel, and yeah, we're getting some juicy tidbits of information. Speaking of Intel, by the way, this is something I'm working on. We got a lot of Lenovo going on all of a sudden. They just like shipped out of the warehouse to us and just said, hey, send it to the HotHardware guys. But this is Lenovo's ThinkPad X1 Carbon, which historically has been one of my daily drivers. This is based on Ice Lake, but also a really well-built machine. I'm taking a look at that shortly as well. It does not have AMD under the hood. This is an Ice Lake version. I love it with Tiger Lake too, but it usually staggers a little bit before it gets out into the mainstream suppliers. But again, yeah, just well-built, thin and light, and that Lenovo delicious keyboard that satisfies so well for long typing experiences. Oh, well, let's see. We got Tuan in the chat. I haven't plugged in a single Thunderbolt device in a Max PS13 Skylake, but I only use that on the road and stick to a desktop at home. Okay. How much road work are we doing now, Tuan? That's the question, right?
Yeah, not much anymore. You know what? One more thing that we should definitely mention regarding that ThinkPad. If you have a high-end Ultrabook nowadays, it's almost a given that's going to throttle if you bang on it with some heavy-duty multi-threaded workloads. That ThinkPad, after an hour of Cinebench, I think its score dropped by less than 5%.
Thermals, baby, in control.
Yeah, man. So with a relatively modest cooling solution inside a thin and light, that 6-core Ryzen barely throttled. So for everyday workloads, browsing the web, using Office, emails, yada yada, the thing's never going to slow down. That's awesome.
Check it out. Marco's pretty high on this. He doesn't give out awesomes lightly, by the way.
Because it's funny. Like this is one of the issues, right, with benchmarks. If you run a benchmark once on a laptop, it's different when you're not thermally constrained on a desktop and you can do whatever you want. But in a thin and light laptop, if you just run through a set of numbers quick, you're going to get X amount of data, and a certain level of results. If you do the same thing again 5 times in a row, they're all going to be lower because everything's thermally saturated and it throttles. So knowing that what you bought performs like the benchmarks is a big deal. And so I like that this 6-core thin and light delivered in that regard. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. We've done, in our other life as analysts, we've done thermal saturation over time, white papers and studies where we've looked at this, and it's a big deal. I mean, what folks don't see in the average, consumer review on the web is that laptops, when they're tested by various publications, and hey, let's face it, everybody, there's some great publications out there that have really good test methodologies, but at the end of the day, if you got to push these reviews out at any reasonable cadence, you can't, wring the thing out forever and get a review out the door. You have to, have a fairly efficient test process. Maybe that test loop is something like 3 iterations of a benchmark and then average out the score, or maybe you do 3 iterations of the benchmark, take the top score, or whatever that publication's methodology is for generating benchmark numbers. In a laptop, some benchmarks you run them more than 2 or 3 times and things change significantly. 10% bleed and because of thermal saturation is kind of a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We have a couple of comments from 2 folks, Joe and Tuan, saying Dell needs to get Ryzen in XPS laptops. I don't think they'll call them XPSs, but I mean, they'd have to be nuts not to do it. I mean, unless there's some, really, really deep relationship going on with Intel. But man, these Ryzen U's, I think they're going to be nice. Well, and again, I think Tiger Lake's going to be nice too.
Well, that's it. That's what I'm thinking of, right? Like, I mean, if you look at the market dynamics and the business dynamics behind that, I mean, let's face it, there's supply demand dynamics in all of these relationships with ecosystem partners and third party OEMs, with Intel and AMD. Tiger Lake is looking pretty strong. So who knows, where the bets are being placed on what horse kind of thing, right? But there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and it'll be interesting to see if Dell ever saddles up with a premium line to AMD. Lenovo clearly, stepped out big. They've committed some major platforms, and in this case, the X13 is a first gen. I mean, they just went out and said, here's a new ThinkPad, and and it's based on AMD. Here's a new ThinkPad line based on AMD.
Yeah, so we have some comments in the chat about seeing the performance difference curves in like running multiple runs of a benchmark and reviews, which is great. But another way you can look at that is to just run different benchmarks, some that have longer run times than others, and then comparing it to other systems that have been run through those benchmarks. And if you see bigger performance deltas in the longer runs, then you can kind of infer that there is some more thermal issue going on there with the lower performing.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. You have to spell that out in the narrative, but that makes sense.
I'm going to throw a link in the YouTube chat. This is the second page to my ROG Zephyrus review, where I actually did 10 runs of Cinebench at the high power setting on the laptop to show the scaling. Now this is not a thin and light. It's a relatively thin, not super bulky notebook, and it's a higher end 8-core Ryzen. But you can see by run 3 the drop off. I don't know if Chris can get to that easy. Chris,
I got it.
I get you? You got it?
I put it in the chat.
Yeah, I can pull that out.
Gotcha.
Oh, let me put it in. I'll put it in here. Now it's in Hangouts for you, Chris.
Damn, my video looks good.
You just like your
just
camera.
looking for where you have
I love my camera, man.
And you have a lot on this page. Hang on.
All the way to the bottom.
Right,
Almost all the way to the bottom.
Here we are.
So you can see, right, by run 3 on a really high-end chip, drops off, it levels, and then between runs 10 and 11, I let the machine cool off. I think it was 30 seconds. Yeah, it was a 30-second, and then it returns back to max performance. But that's what you kind of see. To not see that on a thin and light, obviously it's not the 8-core and it's not the top-end chip, but it's still super fast. So it's awesome.
Yeah. So and I think the difference to make sure people are looking at that chart there, you're seeing the drop-off trough. Sort of the reverse bell curve, if you will. That is an 8-core chip. That's a higher end chip in a thin and light notebook. So a thermally challenged environment, such that that CPU is going to throttle. It's going to get hotter. It's going to get more thermally saturated. I think that's a sub 4-pound machine with an 8-core CPU in it, right?
Something like it's in that range. It's not heavy, but it's not an ultrabook though. It's got a GTX RTX 2060. It's thicker, it's louder, it's hotter. Yeah, but it's not massive. Yeah. And unfortunately, I don't have it on hand anymore to see if any BIOS and firmware updates have changed how that works. But yeah, it is what it is. And to answer 2 on, no, I'm still on the OMD EM1 Mark III, but I'm going through a capture device to get full 1080p because the webcam utilities don't do full 1080.
It's amazing that we're all on webcam utilities right now. I'm not as crispy as you, I must say that. I don't know if that's my feed or if it's just my glass. Probably my glass.
Not the
I have the kit lens.
It's the Canons that we're using, the ADDs. They're over USB 2.0, which only goes up to 1024 by 576 for the resolution. So then you got to stretch it to 1080p, and you get some definite softness there, like 4xing the image. So if you want to fund some capture cards for us, we can get some crispy 1080. However, with our current cameras,
he's always setting the hook. This guy,
right? But we would lose autofocus doing that. which
Why
isn't
would
a
you
huge
lose
deal for the
autofocus?
talking head, because well, you can have autofocus, but you don't get clean HDMI out on the ADD. So then we need to go to like
okay.
the EOS R, R5, R6 to get the clean
I
HDMI out
gotta upgrade my
and
camera anyways.
autofocus, and then you could do a 4K broadcast.
Right.
Sure. We'll just drop 5K in camera equipment. No problem. Easy.
Conservative estimate.
So
All right.
Nathan's saying Elgato sponsor HH with cam links. So I bought a
Yeah,
cam
no
link,
problem with that.
and I bought a couple of generic, like random from China things off Amazon, and it worked better than the cam link. So I sold the cam link.
Just killed the
Oh, wow.
sponsorship.
Yeah, like I was surprised. So it's crazy. I have some off-brand little box that was $52 on Amazon, and I get the full 1080. It's relatively stable. I
Drop
think
the
it's
link
okay.
in the chat, man.
I'll go get it.
I mean, I do lose some frames from you every so often, but I think that's been your Skype connection, because that was happening even when you had a webcam. But
Yeah,
I know when we tested the
I don't know
cam
what to
link,
do.
you had some extra latency in there that was creating some audio sync issues.
So yeah, exactly. That's what we saw with the cam link. So let me see. What was the name of my capture device?
All right. Well, we should wrap pretty soon, but should we mention one more interesting headline in the news before we do? Or
Which one? You got something secret going on, or what?
well, I was talking about the Microsoft stands with Epic in bitter App Store Fortnite showdown against Apple. We want to weigh in on our opinions on that real quick?
So,
I
do you
would-
want to
I
save
would
that
love
for
to.
when Brittany can come on the stream? Because she's actually been excited to talk about it, but wasn't sure if that would make the cast. But
Oh,
we want to hit it.
pull her
now
on the
we
camera
can.
right now.
I don't know where she is.
No, it's an interesting story, and I don't have a lot of opinion on it because I haven't been tracking it closely. But what's interesting to me is that I think game developers in general, or game publishers in general, are feeling the squeeze from all these app stores and the the tithing they take, the toll they take on games, and it's becoming to the point now where big brands are getting creative, and Epic circumventing the pay system on Apple Store with their own, and then suing, countersuing when they remove their app for anti-competitive practices. So Microsoft stepped up and backed them and said, they have similar issues with this. Any thoughts on it, Marco? You sounded like you had an opinion there.
I did, because it's funny. I'm friends with a bunch of the retro gamers from way back in the day, like the guys from Twin Galaxies, and lots of them hate Epic. I think they hate the Epic store. So they're like, F Epic, I'm glad Apple's taking it to them. And then I saw another analyst that said something like, oh, now that Apple's got Epic on the ropes. But I'm like, people got to understand, Epic did this on purpose to force this fight because they think Apple is being unfair and being anti-competitive, taking so much through those microtransactions. So I think Epic's doing a good thing, because for years and years, I mean, ever since the Apple II days, like Apple's always been relatively aggressive, and then now with the current generation stuff, Apple's a company that will see a good idea in the App Store and take it and then put that app developer out of business, right? So I don't like that. And to be aggressive with transactions through another company's product, I understand they should make something. It's their store, it's their platform. They're enabling these transactions in the first place, but it's Epic's product. They 30% is a big chunk. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad that this fight is happening, because that's pushing it, in that regard, in my opinion. So whatever side you're on, to do business in the Apple Store, to have to just give them 30%, I mean, that's big.
Yeah. I think what Microsoft is taking an issue with is denying access to Apple's SDK. So Apple shut them off from that as well, and denying and they quote, I think it was a legal team, denying Epic's access to Apple's SDK and other development tools will prevent Epic from supporting Unreal Engine on iOS and Mac OS, and will place Unreal Engine and those game creators that have built, are building, and may build games on it at a substantial disadvantage. So it's an impact that spreads beyond just Epic and Apple, but but game developers that use the Unreal Engine, which is huge. I mean, there's, you know, and so Microsoft's got skin in that game, literally. So it's interesting. You know, it's amazing to me that what's great about this is that these big companies, you know, blue chip bellwether companies now have serious skin in the game for gaming. I mean, it's a big deal. And so now we're seeing some of these wranglings about where the dollars and cents are going, dragging into the courts and over gaming, because it's big business now, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, man. Gaming is massive now.
Yeah, it is a beautiful thing. All right, so we should wrap on that note, and call it a day, right, fellas?
Yeah, man, let's do it. Let's go have some dinner.
I think that's a great idea. Dinner bells be calling, and but stop by hothardware.com, where you can find us on the web, twitter.com/hothardware, youtube.com/hothardware vids. Thumbs up, subscribe. Stay tuned. We've got a couple things coming up. We've got a major gaming PC giveaway, and we've got a major, Chris is pointing back to that system over his shoulder. One of those beasts is getting given away. And we're going to have some major disclosures from our friends at Intel, we think, in the not so distant future. Some inside, sort of behind the scenes, fireside chat kind of talk, right? That's about all we can say.
For now, that's it. But hopefully it's nice and juicy.
Juicy. We like it juicy. Yeah, baby. And with that, we will thank you so much for stopping by.